I'm Caleb Giddings for Rossi USA, and today we're going to go over how to install a Ranger Point Precision rail on your Rossi R95. The Rossi R95 is available in 3030 or 4570, and you can get it with this traditional style finish, or you can get it as a stainless laminate version that already comes with a rail on it. However, if you're like me and you prefer sort of the classic wood and blue steel finish, but you want the advantage of adding an electronic optic to it, you need to put a rail on it. And that's where Ranger Point Precision's rail comes into play. This is just a standard Picatinny rail, but we're going to go ahead and mount this onto the R95's receiver. The good thing about the R95 is that it is already drilled and tapped for a rail or an optic. It uses the same pattern as the classic Marlin rifles, so we didn't need to reinvent the wheel with this, and there's already a lot of existing accessories out on the market for it. What you're going to need to do this installation is you're going to need a small precision screwdriver to remove the existing screws. You're going to need a regular screwdriver to attach the screws for the Ranger Point rail, and then I recommend a torque wrench because, again, we want to torque these screws down to the proper torque spec once we actually get them into the receiver. One of the nice things about this Real Avid gun vise that I'm using is that if I drop one of these tiny microscopic screws that I'm taking out of the receiver, it's not going to bounce all over the floor, and I can just keep them right here in my bench. I'll want to save these and set them aside in case at some point I decide I want to remove the rail and go back to iron sights or go with a different optic. Today, after we get the rail on, we're going to mount an Aimpoint ACRO P2 onto the rifle. I think the ACRO P2 is an excellent choice for a red dot optic for a lever gun. It allows me to maximize the fast handling characteristics that you get in a lever action rifle, and because 3030, which this rifle is chambered in, has similar terminal ballistics to 7.62 Russian, I can really kind of get the most out of that 3030 caliber using an Aimpoint ACRO or some other red dot sight. So now that my screws are out of the rifle, we're going to go ahead and take the Ranger Point rail. We're going to place it on top. We're going to make sure that all my screw holes line up into the receiver. They do. I've already prepped the Ranger Point screws by pulling them out of the bag and setting them in my gun vise. So now let's go ahead and get them into the Rossi R95. Just like when I'm mounting any other optic, I'm not going to fully tighten these down. I'm just going to get them hand tight to get started, and I'm going to start in the front, and then I'm going to go to the rearmost screw and get that one in. Then we'll go back to the front. Okay. And then one more. Once these 4 screws are in, I'm going to very carefully apply 25 inch-pounds of torque to them to make sure that they're fully locked into the receiver. Whenever you're using a torque wrench on something like a flathead screw, you need to be really careful that you don't strip the screw out by over-torquing it or having the bit of your screwdriver come out of the slot. This is why I recommend using proper gunsmith screwdrivers. Instead of just some cheap screwdriver that you bought at Walmart. No offense to Walmart. Now the rail has been attached, we can go ahead and move on to adding our optic, the Aimpoint ACRO P2. Again, the ACRO P2 is a great choice. I love it, especially for an application like this, where I'm going to be putting it on a fast-handling lever-action rifle. This is the same kind of optic that you could put on a pistol. A lot of people use them on that. I've seen them on submachine guns, pistol caliber carbines, and really any sort of gun where you need to prioritize speed of target acquisition and transition. So I love an ACRO for this application, especially on the Rossi R95. And this is on a nice little QD mount, so I should theoretically be able to just get this on really easily. Now, before I tighten this mount down, what I want to make sure of is that the optic is fully forward in the rail. So you see I've got a little bit of play back and forth in the rail. The reason why you want to make sure the optic is fully forward is when this gun goes off, it's going to make the optic want to shift forward anyway. So if it's already as far forward in the mount as you can get, recoil is not going to affect your zero. So now let's go ahead and see if that's tight. That's too loose. So if your QD mount is too loose and it just swings like this and the optic still has loads of play in it, what you want to do is tighten down the nut on the other side of it. I can just do that using finger tension initially. So we're going to give that a few turns. We're going to check that. Still too loose. Probably a few more turns. This is where it's also beneficial, if you need it, to have a small pair of pliers. Oop, getting there. Went too far, and now it's too tight. When you're closing a QD latch, you don't want to have to force it shut. You should be able to shut it and have it latch all the way just by using finger pressure. Just like that. Now my QD mount is on the rifle. The optic is stable. So this is ready for me to take to the range and zero it.